So, good morning, everyone, and very warm welcome to this webinar series on Azure PowerShell. So, today we will be talking about more on Azure PowerShell rather than talking about the traditional Windows PowerShell. Before we start this session, I wanted to request everyone that if you guys are not speaking, make sure that you are on mute so that you don't disturb the entire session. And whenever you have any questions, queries, you can always unmute yourself and you can ask the question. If you are not getting the opportunity to ask the question, you can always write it in the chat window and we can take those questions as and when the time comes. I hope these instructions are very clear to each and everyone who is part of this session. So with this, let me start the session. And to start this session, let me share my screen first. I hope the screen is visible to everyone. You can say yes, no by unmuting yourself.
Still loading, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
visible now.
visible.
Okay. Thank you very much for the confirmation. So the reason why we have scheduled this webinar for Azure PowerShell is, as we see that day by day, the automation industry is growing so rapidly that today each and everything that we perform it manually is getting automated through PowerShell or the other scripting languages like Python. And apart from that, there's something which is also called as infrastructure as a code, which people usually call it as a part of DevOps, is also moving so rapidly that nowadays the deployment of infrastructure, whether it is Azure, whether it is AWS, or whether it's GCP, so every organization is adopting the DevOps culture to deploy their resources in their cloud platform like Azure, AWS, and GCP. If you look at specifically about Azure, then there are different tools or languages which Azure uses for infrastructure as a code or for scripting. For scripting, it usually uses Windows PowerShell, the traditional tool which Microsoft owns. For writing infrastructure as a code, Microsoft uses JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. And apart from this too, there are a lot of other things as well which Microsoft has provided to us to query the Azure resources. For example, Graph APIs is one of them, Azure Resource Graph is one of them, and so on. If we talk about AWS, AWS uses more of Python, and if we go for GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, they uses YAML so to write their templates. So this is how the cloud companies are adopting infrastructure as a code at such a scale that if you are not aware of the deployment languages or the languages which are used to write the templates, then it will be really hard for you guys to do some advanced stuff or some sort of automation going forward. So today we'll be talking about more on Azure PowerShell. So to start with Azure PowerShell, we'll not be directly jumping into it, but we'll start with the basics of PowerShell. Then we'll also see how the commands are framed, what are the different versions of PowerShell, and stuff like that. So since we have a very short session today until 12:30, so I don't want to waste time on giving the introduction, but we can directly jump on to the actual contents of today's webinar. So, what is PowerShell basically? Because when I ask people that do you know PowerShell or do you write anything in PowerShell, so people are very much confused about PowerShell and they have a mindset that in order to write something in PowerShell, a person must be very well versed with the development skills. But to answer this question, this is absolutely wrong. And in order to know PowerShell, uh, there is no need of understanding the development skills. Yeah, but if you have a part of development in your brain, then yes, obviously it makes you easier to understand how the scripts or how the syntax works in PowerShell, and you can write more complex scripts than a usual normal person who knows a PowerShell at a very basic level. So yes, there are advantages of knowing development languages before you get into Azure PowerShell, but it is not at all necessary. It is not at all mandatory to write PowerShell script. You should be having a development skills. So this is first thing that you should remove this from your mind, and then you'll be able to play with the PowerShell the free hand. So what is PowerShell basically, and what is the difference between a Windows PowerShell and a normal command prompt? So since we guys are working in Windows operating system since inception, we know that we have been using command prompt on a very larger scale as compared to Windows PowerShell. Or in fact, we even didn't know Windows PowerShell a few years back. But if you look at the trend of automation, then Windows PowerShell comes at the first place when it comes to writing any automation that you would like to do it in your environment. And that's where this fancy term or this fancy tool Windows PowerShell came into picture. So if you look at the difference between a Windows PowerShell and a traditional command prompt. So Windows PowerShell is basically a .NET based language, and which is also called as object-based scripting language, which is Windows PowerShell. And if you look at command prompt, it's basically a text-based scripting language. So it normally uses a text-based scripting language, whereas Windows PowerShell uses the object-based scripting language. Anything that you write in a Windows PowerShell, it has an associated object which gets created in the .NET framework terminology. Then, if you ask me about the differences or the advantages, so one of the difference could be if you want to still use command prompt, you can still use all the command prompts commands in Windows PowerShell, but the vice versa is not possible. You cannot use Windows PowerShell commandlets into your command shell. So that's one of the thing. Then the very big advantage of Windows PowerShell is if you look at the regular system administration tasks, like let's say you want to manage a registry, or if you want to manage, let's say, WMI objects. So WMI stands for Windows Management Instrumentation, or you would like to extract information from the operating system layer. So for that purpose, you actually require the WMI classes to be called. And if you want to do such things in Windows PowerShell, then it's very easy and pretty straightforward. But the same things cannot be done in your command prompt. So that's one of the huge advantage. And then the last one I could discuss here is, so PowerShell actually provides us with a very powerful scripting environment that can be used to write complex scripts or for managing Windows systems more easily than that you manage it through your command prompt. So it's very straightforward. It's very easy to understand Windows PowerShell. You have to understand the logic and the way the commands are framed here, rather than what we can say by hurting the commands. So by hurting the commands will never work in Windows PowerShell. So that logic can be applied in your command prompt commandlets, but you should not be using that logic when you're working with Windows PowerShell especially. Okay. So when it comes to Windows PowerShell, so Windows PowerShell is basically a generic tool which has been developed by Microsoft, and uh, till date, whatever Microsoft technologies that exist, for example, you can talk about Active Directory or Windows Server or Hyper-V or SQL Server or SharePoint, anything that you can think of. Every application or every tool which Microsoft has developed can be managed through Windows PowerShell. Now the catch here is no matter what tool you want to manage of Microsoft, you have to have the specific set of commands in your PowerShell. and this has been done by Microsoft in a specific category called a module. Okay, so every technology that have been designed by Microsoft today has an associated PowerShell module. For example, if you want to manage the entire SQL server through Windows PowerShell, by default you will not be able to manage, since you won't be having the associated modules which are required for SQL. And the same thing with SharePoint, the same thing with Active Directory, Azure, etc. So in a nutshell, what I mean by that is, let's say you want to manage Azure through PowerShell, then you have to install the associated modules for Azure in your Windows PowerShell session. And we will be looking those things in a very short period of time, how it is basically done. So, to start with Windows PowerShell, there are two flavors, or there are two variants of Windows PowerShell which is installed on your any Windows operating system. The versions might be different according to the operating system, but you could always see the two variants in any operating system. So one is the normal Windows PowerShell, and the other one is a PowerShell ISE. So let me open my notepad. So I'm talking about the two things. One is Windows PowerShell, and the second one is Windows PowerShell ISE. Now ISE stands for Integrated Scripting Environment. Integrated Scripting Environment. Okay, and again there's a PowerShell thing as well. So if I go to start, and if I simply type PowerShell, you should see PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, as well as Windows PowerShell ISE. Now there are there are difference between using Windows PowerShell and Windows PowerShell ISE. Now if I open Windows PowerShell, what happens is you get a Windows PowerShell and you are at a PowerShell prompt. So PS stands for PowerShell. So you're at the PowerShell prompt. Now what happens here is you can run the pre-created or the created scripts as it is in your Windows PowerShell. So Windows PowerShell is not basically meant for developing scripts or writing scripts. Now what I mean by that is, let's say I want to write lines and lines of code for my automation to run. So if you talk about Windows PowerShell, this is not the right place to write your script. The reason being is it does not allow us, or it does not provide us with the script editor, which is missing in your Windows PowerShell. So if you want to write some one-liner, you can always write this in your Windows PowerShell. But the same thing, but if you want to write tons and tons of code, you cannot write it in your normal Windows PowerShell. So for that purpose, what you have to do is you have to always go with the Windows PowerShell ISE, which is ISE stands for Integrated Scripting Environment. So to open that, you can simply type it ISE, and if I click on Windows PowerShell ISE, it will open up the PowerShell ISE session for you. So this is what the PowerShell ISE. Let's get familiar with the graphical user interface of ISE. So on the top, the white window that you see is called as script editor. Then at the bottom, the blue screen is called as the PowerShell console. So if you look at the normal Windows PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. So what you see here is, so this is the PowerShell console. The same console can be obtained in PowerShell ISE, but the advantage here is you get an additional script editor where you can write your lines and lines of code and execute it. Now the best part of PowerShell ISE is without even writing the same lines again and again, you can just execute it. Now what I mean by that is, let's say if I can come here to normal Windows PowerShell. So let's say I want to write something. Let's say get service hyphen where running. So okay, something's wrong here. Get hyphen service pipe. Then I'll have to use the condition here where dollar underscore dot status is equal to running. Now, if I want to make any changes into this command, I have to again repeat this command once again, go back to the character index, and then make some changes. So it's hard to edit the existing scripts in Windows PowerShell, and again, it's hard to write tons and tons of code here. So if you look at any PowerShell developer or a person who writes PowerShell scripts, you'll always see the PowerShell ISE window open in front of him, because that provides the flexibility to write tons and tons of code. Then again, one of the best part which everyone likes about PowerShell is in PowerShell ISE, if you have, let's say, 10 lines of code, you can execute any line in any manner. Okay, so let's say I have 4 lines of code and I want to just test whether the line number 3 is working for me or not. Okay, I can do it with the help of ISE rather than doing the same thing with Windows PowerShell. Okay, I guess something is wrong with my laptop because this ISE and the open sessions are getting closed automatically. Anyways, that's fine for us. So I'll open my Windows PowerShell ISE for now. I hope the voice is audible to each and everyone who has joined in the session. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Ganesh, I'm audible.
All right.
You are audible.
Yes, Ganesh.
All right. Because there could be issues at my end as well. If the link goes down, you all might get disconnected. So do ping me on WhatsApp if something goes wrong with my internet. Okay. Thank you. So the first command that I usually teach to my participant, or the first command which I personally learned in PowerShell, was to check the PowerShell version, because most of the people who use PowerShell, they don't know what version of PowerShell they are running, and which is the latest PowerShell version currently available in the market. So to check the PowerShell version, there are again 2 different commandlets. You can use any one. So you can in fact run $ps version table. Okay, so this command can give you the version of your PowerShell that you're using. So to execute this command, you don't have to press enter just like you do it in a command prompt. Okay, you have to either select this entire line, or you can place cursor in that line anywhere, and you have these 2 buttons here. One is the F5 and the another one is the F8. So this button is for running the entire script, but if your objective is not to run the entire script, you can run a single line as well by clicking on F8. So in our case, it doesn't matter whether you click F5 or F8, since we have just 1 line in our code, it will only execute the 1 line. But ideally, when you have lines and lines of code, we usually run the selection. So run selection. If I click on this run selection, you can see the output is generated in the console. Okay, and it says that the PS version that you're using is 5.1. Okay, but if you look at the latest PS version from Microsoft, it's 6.0 that you'll have to install, or you can even in fact install 5.1 as well. Okay, so there's another command called get-host, which can also give us the same output if I run the same command. Yeah, this is the same thing, version and the rest of things. Okay, so it's up to you what command you would like to utilize. Both the commands are in front of you. Okay, I'll try to get this command copied in Microsoft Word so that I can share it with you guys after the session. $PS version get-host. All right, let's jump on to the next line. Now, as I said that in order to manage any application of Microsoft through Windows PowerShell, there are associated modules that you have to install, and Azure is no exception to this. So if you want to manage Microsoft Azure through Windows PowerShell, you'll have to install the Azure modules. And the Azure modules in earlier days, not the earlier days, but before a couple of months back, was called as Azure RM. So Azure RM is the module name of Azure. But since Microsoft Azure platform is growing so rapidly and the developments are happening at such a larger scale, now what they have did is they have came up with an updated module or new modules for Azure, okay, which is called as AZ module. The name of the module itself is AZ, and the earlier modules were called as Azure RM module, okay. So in order to install those modules in your Windows PowerShell session, the command you'll use will be install hyphen module, and the name of the module. We'll be discussing about how the commands are framed in Windows PowerShell, so you don't have to worry about that. So if you want to install the new modules which Microsoft has released recently, which are the AZ modules, then you'll have to use install hyphen module hyphen name AZ. And you can also apply a pipe called a parameter called force. What this will do is this will install this AZ module, or basically the Azure models, in your Windows PowerShell session. And the benefit of this is you can manage the entire Microsoft Azure through Windows PowerShell with the help of this AZ commandlets. Now, a lot of people will face problems with the install hyphen module command. So install hyphen module command will not be available in the previous versions of PowerShell. Now, previous version in the sense, let's say if someone is running on 2.0 or 3.0 or 5.0, they will not be able to get this install hyphen module command. So in order to get this command called install hyphen module, you'll have to upgrade your Windows PowerShell. Now, to upgrade your Windows PowerShell, you will have to download the Windows Management Framework. So, for example, let's say someone is using Microsoft Windows 7 on their laptop, then obviously they might be running on either Windows PowerShell version 2.0 or 3.0. So, the first thing they will have to do is they will have to upgrade the Windows PowerShell from 2.0 or 3.0 to 5.1. In order to do so, you'll have to download the Windows Management Framework 5.1. So if you go to download Windows Management Framework, okay. So you'll have to get this Windows Management Framework 5.1 downloaded on your local machine or any machine in which you have to import the modules. So once this web page opens up, you'll have to download this Windows Management Framework 5.1 according to the operating system that you have. So there are Windows Management Framework 5.1 available for Server 2012, Windows 7, Windows 2008 R2, Windows 7 32-bit, Windows 8.1. So accordingly select the package, download it, install it, restart your machine, and you'll see that your Windows PowerShell version should be upgraded from whatever version it was earlier to the 5.1. Okay. So if you look at my PowerShell might not be having the new AZ modules in my PowerShell repository, but they might be having the previous modules which were called as Azure RM modules. So if I click on Show Command Add-on, on the right hand side you will see that the list of commands will come up. Okay, and you'll see the list of commands here with Azure RM, Azure RM, Azure RM. Okay, but in the new set of modules which we call as an AZ module, you don't have to specify this entire Azure RM in your command. So let's say if I want to run this command, add-Azure RM auto scaling setting, I just have to write add-AZ auto scale setting. So they have completely removed the what you can say, the RM part from the commandlet, and for Azure they have just specified AZ in place of entire Azure. So this will be the command if you want to install the modules for your Azure, the AZ module. So it will be install hyphen module hyphen name AZ, and you can apply a force switch. So since I already have the RM modules with me, I'll show you the demonstration on the RM module, but I would encourage you guys to go with the new AZ modules rather than Azure RM. You just have to replace the entire Azure RM by just AZ. Okay. I'll show you how to do that in later part of the sessions. So now the first question is, how do we see whether the module is so after installing the module, whether the module has installed in my PowerShell session. So to check that, you have a command called get hyphen module. You can write it hyphen name and the name of the module. So if I want to see whether I have the Azure RM module installed in my PowerShell session, so I just have to run this command, get hyphen module Azure RM. It doesn't show up. Let's say Azure RM star. It is not showing. Let's say Azure star. Get hyphen Azure module. Get hyphen module. You can also see by a different parameter called list available, so that it will show me the list of modules which are installed on my laptop. Let me close this one. And just give some seconds. Yeah, you can see here the list of modules which are installed on my laptop. So here if you see, all the Azure RM modules are installed here. So there are different modules. So you can see here the Azure RM module is installed here. So once you also install your module in your PowerShell session, you can always run this command called get hyphen module hyphen list available to check out the list of modules that are installed in your PowerShell session. Now going back to the PowerShell basics, a lot of people find it difficult to frame a command. So PowerShell uses a very user-friendly, what you can say, a culture or a syntax which everyone should be comfortable with. It's a very plain and very simple logic which Windows PowerShell uses. The logic that it uses is the logic of verb hyphen noun. Now, since we are at a level where we can understand what is a verb and what is a noun. So verb in English grammar is called as action, right? And noun is a name of any person or any object. Okay, so in PowerShell also, if you want to perform any action, you have to just specify the name of the action first and the noun of the object followed by an hyphen. Okay, so in this specific command, you can see here, get is the action which I want to perform and module is the noun. Okay, so I want to see a module. I want to get the list of module and the followed by a parameter. Okay, so any command in Azure will be, not in Azure but in Windows PowerShell, will have to follow the same syntax which is called as verb hyphen noun. So let's say I want to start a service. Okay, so start is my verb and service is my noun. So let's say start hyphen service, or let's say I want to get the list of service. So I can write get hyphen service. So if I run this, you'll see the list of services here. Okay, I want to, let's say I want to get the event log, so I can write get hyphen event log and then the followed by different parameters. So let's say I want to get the application log. Okay, so I can simply run this get hyphen event log hyphen log name and application. You can see here all the logs, all the application logs can be seen here. Now it will not stop until the entire logs are extracted here. So I will stop this script. Okay, so this I stop the script. Similarly, if I want to start any service, the command is start hyphen service. And the best part of PowerShell is you don't have to remember any command in your mind. You can always do a tab completion. So when I say tab completion, let's say if I just specified start hyphen, I don't know what the noun could be. I can simply hit tab and it will list all the commands for the start. It will list all the commands which starts with start. So if I want to see start hyphen ser, are there any other commands which also has ser? So if we simply hit tab, it will give start hyphen service, and if I keep on pressing tab, it says that there are no other commands other than start hyphen service. Okay, so this is how you can simply frame a command in Windows PowerShell. You have to always remember a logic of verb hyphen noun, whenever you're writing anything in Windows PowerShell. For example, let's say I want to create a folder in C drive. Let me go to C drive. So let me open my Windows Explorer, and if I go to C drive, I want to create a folder called PowerShell in my C drive. So what I can do is, first of all, I have to go to C drive. So the command is set-location. Okay, set-location. So set is the command which I'm using. Set is the verb that I'm using. Location is the noun. So what you want to set? So I want to set C drive. Okay, I can simply execute this and can see here that you have been your drive has been changed to C drive. Now I want to create a folder. So the command is new. I want to create something new. New hyphen item. Okay, hyphen item type. So you have to specify the item type, like what you want to do. So I want to create a directory. What should be the name of the directory? The name of the directory should be let's say PowerShell. Okay, PowerShell. And obviously you have to specify the path as well. So I can simply specify path, or it will create this folder to the default directory on which you are currently residing. So you can see here it has created a PowerShell folder. So this is how you can frame your simple commands in Windows PowerShell. So with this, with the very minimal or the very basic knowledge of how to frame PowerShell commands, we'll jump on to the actual Azure PowerShell. Okay, so to clean all the console related things, you simply click on this flush button or clear console pane, and it will clear everything. Or you can also type in CLS or CLR, whatever you think should you comfortable with. Okay, now to start with Azure PowerShell. Okay, let's say I want to manage the entire Azure infrastructure through PowerShell. So to do so, the first and foremost thing is the way you manage your Azure PowerShell. So the first and foremost thing that we do is we log into the Azure portal. Okay, the first and foremost thing that we usually do is, so we open up our browser, then we open a URL called portal.azure.com, portal.azure.com, and once we are on portal.azure.com, what we do is we basically enter our credentials. So let me show you through the interactive way, and then we'll jump on to the PowerShell way. So I can select my username or the sign-in address and then the password. And there you go. So it says the password has expired. Let me reset the password. So the way you log in to Azure portal through your browser, the same thing has to be done in Windows PowerShell as well. So before you start managing the entire Azure infrastructure to Windows PowerShell, you first have to establish a session with Azure. To do so, you have to use a command called login -Azure RM account. So you can see here the moment I started writing Azure, it started listing all the commands which start with Azure. So you can see here Azure RM account. So I can also do a tab completion here. And what I'll do is I'll just execute this single line from my ISE, and this will give me an interactive window to enter the credentials. Let me see whether the window is at the back. Okay, so here comes the window. Okay, so here I'll enter my credentials. So whenever you want to manage Azure through PowerShell, you'll have to first run login-Azure RM account command and enter your credentials. So I'll enter my credentials, and then it will ask for the password. And the moment I enter my credentials, there will be a session which will get established between your Windows PowerShell, which is on your laptop, with your Azure. So there you go. It says that the session has been established and it has listed all the details of your Azure subscription. So the account which I'm using to log into my Azure RM account is ganesh.jadhav@cloudtravelers.co.in. My subscription name is MSGN Platforms. My subscription ID, tenant ID, and environment. Okay. So this has given us the confirmation that we are now connected to our Azure infrastructure. Now we will be doing the list of operations in our Azure environment through Windows PowerShell. Now the first thing that I want to show up in the Azure through PowerShell is to get the list of virtual machines. So usually if I want to see the list of virtual machine in Azure portal, what I basically do is I click on virtual machines tab in Azure portal. Okay, but the same thing can be obtained from your PowerShell. To do so, you have to write get-azure rm VM is the command. So get-azure rm VM, and if I want to just execute this line, I will be using the F8 selection. So running this command will give me the list of virtual machines which are available in my subscription. I believe the internet has slowed down very drastically for me, so that's why it is running very slowly. Alright, so you can see here it has listed me the list of virtual machines that are part of my Azure subscription. So this is the name of the resource group. This is the name of the VM. So the name of the VM is Barracuda-CloudGen, and this VM is part of this resource group animators-rg. This VM has been created in east to west 2 location. Then the size of the VM is standard_F1S. It is running a Linux operating system, and the name of the NIC card is Barracuda-CloudGen 169. Okay. So get-azure VM will list down all the virtual machines in your subscription. But let's say I just want to list out virtual machine which are part of one resource group. Let's say I have a resource group called Cloud Travelers-RG. You can see here in this Cloud Travelers-RG, I can see there are 2 virtual machines, CTDC1 and Ganesh VM1. So if I just want to see the list of virtual machines which are part of a specific resource group, I can write get-azure rm VM. Okay. Now when you're writing anything in Windows PowerShell, every commandlet has something called properties. Okay, and every property will have an associated value. So in this case, since I just want to look for a resource group, a VMs in a resource group, I will use a property, or not property, but parameter, sorry. So every command in Windows PowerShell has a parameter, and every parameter has its associated value. Okay. So in my case, I want to list all the VMs which are part of Cloud Travelers-RG. So I'll be using the parameter for this get-azure rm VM command called resource group name. And to use the parameter, you have to always use hyphen. So if you press hyphen, it will list all the parameters that it can accept. Okay. So one of the parameter that I would like to use is resource group name, and you can specify your resource group name here, which is Cloud Travelers-RG. And now let's execute this command, and this will only list 2 virtual machines in this case, which is CTDC1 and Ganesh VM1. Because the reason is we have specifically asked our Windows PowerShell to list the virtual machines which are part of just one resource group, which is Cloud Travelers-RG. But in this case, we have not specified any resource group. So what it did is it listed all the virtual machines in my subscription. Now the next thing is, let's say I want to get the details of single virtual machine. Okay, so what I can do is I can use the same command, get-azure rm VM. Now the property would be resource group name, so I'll have to always specify the resource group name for the VM. Now let's see the details for one of the VM called myrad VM1. Okay, so the resource group name is radical2. So I'll specify radical day 2 here, and then there will be another property that you'll have to use called name, because since you're looking at a specific VM, so obviously you'll have to specify the name of that VM as well in your command. So the name of my VM is my rad VM1. Okay, so if I run this command, this will only list the status or the details for one VM. Okay, so you can see here when I ran this command get an Azure RM VM for one virtual machine, it gave me a different output as compared to the earlier one. Okay, so now let's try to understand what this output is. Now this output is basically about all the properties this virtual machine is holding in Azure. So the first property is resource group name. So it is basically telling my RAD VM is part of Radical Day 2 resource group. Okay, then it is giving us the resource ID. So resource ID is basically a combination of your subscription ID, then your resource group and stuffs like that. And then it's giving you a VM ID, then the type of object it is, whether it's a Microsoft.network, Microsoft.compute, Microsoft.authorization. So it's giving us a type of object here. Then it is giving us the location of that VM, which is East to S2. Then it says that this specific VM has no tags associated with it, as it is showing as blank. Then the other details, diagnostic profile, extensions. So you have one VM extension which is running here, enable VM access, then hardware profile, VM size. So if you look at here, it is not showing me the actual VM size. It is not actually showing me the network interface name and stuffs like that. So the way we extract this information in PowerShell is we basically make use of variables in Windows PowerShell. Okay, so the way I will do is, so anything in Windows PowerShell that you want to store in an object, we use variables. So let's say I want to store my name in one of the variable. Now why would one do this? Why would one store a value in a variable? The benefit of using variables in PowerShell is you can reuse the same name throughout your script, just calling out the name of the variable rather than calling the actual name. So for example, I want to use my name at, let's say, hundreds of places in a script. So it is really hard if I do write my name in the script at 100 places, and tomorrow let's say I want to replace that Ganesh by, let's say, Jadhav. Okay, the person will have to modify all those 100 locations, or he or she will have to either use find replace kind of a thing to do so. But again, there is a possibility of errors in both of this operation. So the way we handle this in PowerShell is we usually use variables. So in PowerShell, if you want to create any variable, the variables are always created with a $sign. So let's say I want to create a name of a variable called $name. So I can write $name. So $name will become the name of my variable. Is equal to what should be stored in that variable. So if it's a string value, then you'll have to always specify that value in a quote or it will not accept. So let's say if I specify $name is equal to Ganesh, so it should throw an error, okay, because it does not understand what type of value it is. So since Ganesh is a string value, I will specify that in quotes, and if I run this, you should see that it has ran successfully. So if I want to see what is there in $name variable, I can simply type $name and hit enter, and it will return a value called Ganesh. Let's say I want to create another variable called, let's say, $surname is equal to Jadhav. Okay, I can do this operation. So if I run this $surname now, you should see a value over there. Now if I want to add this, I can write $name plus $surname, and let's take it in one variable. In fact, this should also print. You can see here it has printed Ganesh Jadhav. Now you can also add a space here, so I can add plus, I can add here a space, and that's it. You can see here now Ganesh space Jadhav, because since space is also considered as a character, you'll have to specify that in an summation operation. Now what I'm showing you this is because what you can do is you can also get the output of a specific command to a variable as well. For example, I want to get the information of my RAD VM to a specific variable. So I can define here $VM details is equal to the output of the command. So if I run this, PowerShell will not list anything for you here, but rather whatever output that this command was expected to generate has been now extracted to this variable $VM details. So if you run $VM details, and if you run this, you can see here the details of your VM. Now why I did this so is because I wanted to see the extended properties of hardware profile or network profile or the disk that are attached to this VM. So to do so, let me clear this. I can simply run $VM details. Okay. Now what property you want to see of this VM details? Let's say hardware profile. So you can simply type dot followed by the profile, followed by the additional property dot hardware profile. So if I run this, it should tell me what size of VM, what size is being used for this VM. So it's standard underscore ds1 underscore v2. Let's say I want to get the details of my operating system profile. So I can simply run $VM details dot what is the property name? It's OS profile. Okay, I can simply type OS profile and run, and it can tell me the details. What is the computer name? What is the username? And obviously it will not show the password because these are saved in a secure string. Then let's say I want to get the storage details. Okay, I want to so storage details are part of a storage profile property. I can run $VM details dot storage profile. Okay, let's see what storage profile output gives us. So again, when I run storage profile, that again gave me three different properties: image reference, OS disk, and data disk. Okay, so I want to see the details of data disk. I can simply add a dot data disks, and it is telling me that this VM has two disks attached to it. One disk is of 100 GB and the other disk is of 500 GB. So this is how you can extract information from different properties of a VM. If you are taking the output of that command to a specific variable. Okay. So before I move on to the other parts of Azure PowerShell, if you guys have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Hi, Ajay here.
Yes, Ajay.
You said that AZ is a new model and Azure RM is deprecating now, right?
So it is not getting deprecated. The news has not yet came, but yeah, going forward, we might see the Azure RM model getting deprecated and people start using AZ.
Okay. Yep. Thanks. So the next question is, suppose somebody has written scripts using Azure RM model, and what is the impact of this new model is getting introduced?
So what they have done is they have done the modification with respect to the naming conventions that we were using earlier. So since Azure was earlier, what we can say, since Azure had the two different portals, one was the classic portal and one was the ARM portal. So to specify the kind of resource, let's say I have created a resource in classic portal, I have created a resource in ARM portal. So which resource you want to manage? For that purpose, earlier also we had two different types of model. One was called as Azure model, which didn't came with an Azure RM thing in the command, but later on we got Azure RM thing for ARM, and now we are coming up with AZ. So since Azure is now running on a single portal called the ARM portal, there is no need to specifically use a term called RM in the command, because it's all about Azure at the end of the day. So let's say I want to get the list of VMs. I can simply type get-az VM. So the new commandlets that are coming in the AZ will be get-az VM. So whatever we are running right now, get-azure RM VM, you will not have to use the entire thing. You'll just have to use get-az VM. So it's just the truncation of the command. So what they have did is, instead of Azure RM, they have replaced it by AZ.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions from the other participants, guys?
Yeah, hi Ramesh. The same question I would ask, if I have the one script which having Azure RM modules in it, so can I convert it into I mean, if I have installed AZ module and I don't have Azure RM module installed in my PowerShell, so will it be running, or will it accept that commands?
No. So if I have understood your question correctly, you mean to say that you have an existing script in which you have used the Azure RM modules, but going forward, if I want to, is there any way to convert the Azure RM command to AZ command? Is that your question?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So as of today, there is no way, or there is no tool developed by Microsoft to convert your previous Azure RM scripts to AZ script. Okay. So you'll have to redesign your scripts, which will be aligned with the new modules, which is AZ module.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Hello, Ganesh.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I have a question. Actually, my where I am working, like it's a base machine is working with the Windows 8, like, and I want to run PowerShell modules, but PowerShell which is running on that machine is older version.
Right.
But I need to first upgrade the PowerShell and I need to install the modules, right?
Exactly. So that's where we started our discussion with. So the first and foremost thing is you'll have to upgrade your PowerShell version through whatever it is, from whatever it is now to 5.1 or 6.0. To do so, you'll have to download the Windows Management Framework, upgrade your PowerShell version, and then install the PowerShell modules for Azure.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Hello? Okay, so let's take this silence as no questions and we'll proceed further. Now the next command that we are going to see is, so since we have already seen how to get the list of virtual machines from PowerShell, which is the command that we use called get-azure rm VM. Okay, VM. So if I execute this command, I should be able to get the list of VMs. Okay. Just give me a minute, guys. I think the laptop has hanged. Okay. So if I run this command get-azure rm VM, it will list all the virtual machines which are part of my Azure subscription. But I want to see the status of one VM, and I'm to start that VM. Let's say if I go to my Azure portal, you can see here that there's a VM called CTDC1, which is in deallocated state. Okay, I want to start this VM. Now let's do the same operation through PowerShell. Okay, so to start a VM, there's a command called start hyphen. There's a command called start hyphen Azure RM VM. Then you'll have to specify the resource group name in which that VM is residing. For example, that VM is a part of Cloud Travelers-RG. So Cloud Travelers-RG followed by the name of the VM. So name of the VM is CTDC1, I believe. Yes, CTDC1. Let's execute this command. So you can also press a shortcut for running a single line, which is F8. And if you want to run the entire script, the shortcut is F5. So I have pressed F8 through my laptop as my mouse has stopped working. And let's see if the virtual machine gets started. She'll have to give some seconds to start the VM, and within a fraction of seconds you'll see that the VM will go into the starting state. I've refreshed my portal. And you all guys can see now that the VM has came into running state. So the way we did this was through a PowerShell, but the command has not yet completed because if you see at the top where you'll see the run selection, there's a stop button which is still active. That means the command is still in the running phase. Though the VM has started, but the command has not yet completed. So you'll have to wait until this command gets completed. Once this command gets completed, you'll get the status report. And the same command can be also not the same command, but you'll have to just replace the start with stop, and the same and the command can be used for stopping your VM. So stop -Azure RM VM, same the resource group name. I can do a copy paste here. So let's say if I do a copy and paste here, I can just replace the name of the resource group and the name of the VM if I want to stop any other virtual machine. But in our case, we'll have to stop this VM only because this is the only VM which is currently running. Now, if you all are aware, in Azure, there are two types of stop operation. One is a stopped operation, and the second one is stopped deallocated operation. Now, I won't be explaining the differences between the stopped and stopped deallocated, but I can only tell you that if you want to stop the virtual machine and not deallocated, you can simply run a command called stop-Azure RMVM, and you'll have to add an additional parameter called -stay provision. Now, stay provision parameter will help you to make sure that your VM does not get deallocated, but rather only stopped. Okay, and if you want to make sure that you want to deallocate the VM, then you'll have to remove this stay provision switch from here. So if I run this command without stay provision, the VM will go into deallocated state. But if I apply a switch called stay provision here at the end of the command, then Azure will make sure that your VM does not deallocate, but rather gets stopped. Any questions, guys, in this stop command?
No, finish.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Hi, this is Ajay. Is there any method attached to the VM object to directly start or stop that VM, like $VM.start or the $VM.stop?
No, Ganesh.
No.
Okay.
Okay. So with this, let's move on now. So the way we saw the list of virtual machines in our subscription, the same thing can be applied to each and every service in Azure. So let's say I want to get the list of resource groups in my subscription. I can simply run get-Azure RM resource group. Okay, and if I run this command, you'll see the list of resource groups that I have in my subscription. So get-Azure RM resource group will list all the resource groups that are part of my subscription. But if you look at the resource group, a single resource group here, you can see that there are multiple properties. For example, a resource group name, the location of the resource group, the provisioning state of the resource group, the tags section, and the resource ID. But you can always filter the output according to your needs. So you can manipulate your command by piping it. So this is called as pipe, and then you can use a command called select, and you can specify the properties that you are interested in. So I'm just interested in the resource group name property. Okay, so I can type resource group name. So basically what I'm expecting is when I run get-azure rm resource group command, PowerShell should only list me the name of the resource group rather than listing all the properties of it. Okay, so let me run this command, and you can see that it will only list the resource group name rather than listing all the other properties of it. Now you can further manipulate this command. Now I want this list in a notepad file. So what I can do is I can again pipe. Okay, I can again pipe this, and I can use a command called out-file, and you have to simply give the path of the file where you would like to get this information. So I would like to get this information in a file called resourcegroups.txt, which will be at C drive temp. So let's run this. Okay, so what it says, could not find a part of the path. Okay, so there is no folder called C drive temp. Let's create a folder called C drive temp. So I can do this by using my command add-item. So let's do it through PowerShell. What's happening? Sorry, it's new -item, not add-item. New -item. Then hyphen. The path is C drive. Then I want to specify the item type. Item type will be directory. Okay, and just execute this. So it says an item with the specified name already exists. Okay, it says, okay.
It's a C temp. It's a $C temp. New -path $C temp.
No,
I want to specify full path.
No, I want to specify. I want to create a. I have not specified the name of the item here. -name, then temp. It already exists.
I think name has to be mentioned of the directory.
Sorry.
The name. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Let me see. So let's get into temp and sorry. cd temp. Okay. It says the temp does not exist, but it is showing me here. Let's go to my Explorer and see what's the problem here. Okay, so there's a file which got created. Let me delete this one. Now it should allow us. Yeah, so it has got created, and now let's run this command. get-azure rm resource group, and it will create a resource groups.txt file which will have the information about all the resource groups which are part of my subscription. All right, the command has ran successfully. Let's go to temp, and there you go. So it has extracted the list of resource groups in a notepad file called resource groups.txt, which we had given to the PowerShell output. Okay, so this is how you can manipulate your command. Simply running this command will give you a lot of properties, but what you can do is you can manipulate those properties according to your needs by using a select command. But before that, you'll have to pipe it, since that's another command. And in PowerShell, if you want to use multiple commands in a single line, you have to use a concept called pipelines, and that's what the concept is. Now, let's say if I run this command called get-azure rm resource group. Okay. Now, please look at this practical very carefully. If I run this command get-azure rm resource group, let me get the output here. I want the resource group name and the region. So let's say resource group name, and along with that I also want the location property as well. And if I run this command, it will give me an output like resource group name and the location. You can see here that there are resource groups which are created in different regions. So East US 2 has a resource group, North Europe has a resource group, Central US, West US 2. If you want to see a specific region specific resource group, so what you have to do is you have to add an expression here. So we call it as expression in PowerShell, wherein you'll have to specify the condition. So let's say get-Azure RM resource group where now I'm starting expression now. So expression always starts in a curly braces followed by $_dot. Okay, where now what property you want to filter it on? So I want to filter on basis of location. So I want to see location is equal to North Europe. So I want to see the list of resource group which are part of North Europe location, and I'll run this command now. So you'll see now that only one resource group will be listed here, and you can further pipe it to see the selected property. So select resource group name, okay, and you can see here that PowerShell says that you only have one resource group called radical test 211N in North Europe. So this is something which is called as expression in PowerShell, wherein you can apply different conditions based on your requirement. Okay, so the same thing also applies with the virtual machines as well, the VNets as well. Let's say I want to get the list of storage accounts, so I can run get-Azure RM storage account. Okay, if I run this, you will see the list of storage accounts which are present in my Azure subscription. See here, hell lot of properties. I'm not really interested in those properties, so I just want to list the storage account name. So you'll have to see the property for that VM name, not the VM name, with the storage account name. Where can I see? Okay, so storage account name is the property that I just want to see. So I can simply do a copy paste as well. So I'm taking this storage account property, copy, and at the same time I also want the location as well. So I can type location here, location. If I run this, you will see the list of storage accounts that will be presented by PowerShell to us with just storage account name and the location, and there you go. Okay, and again you can apply filter here. So let's say I just want to see the storage accounts which are part of Central India. So where $_dot location is equal to Central India, and I'm interested in just looking after the storage account name and location. Okay. If I run this, you will see only 2 storage accounts coming up in the output. There you go. Sometimes there is a requirement to remove these headings as well. So you can always use what you can say. You can only remove the heading of one property. So let's say -expand property. Okay. So if I run this, you will see the output without any headings now. So the difference between this output and this output is without the heading, this output is with heading. And to remove the heading, you have to use a property. You have to use a parameter called -expand property. Any questions, guys?
Ganesh sir, do we have a list of expression? I mean, which all expression we can use or can be used?
So, sir, expressions are always generated basis on our requirement. There is no such specific set of expressions on any web page you'll get, because expressions are something which are our custom requirement. So
we can.
Yeah, you'll have to generate the expression on your own.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. because when you run a single command, it has a lot of properties. Okay, no one will come to know on what property you want to create expression on. Let's say I have one condition in my mind. Let's say I want to list the resource groups on which there are no tags. Okay, now what the way you can do is you can do it like this: get hyphen Azure RM. Let's say get hyphen Azure RM resource group. Okay, pipe where dollar underscore dot tags. Okay, tags is equal to dollar null. Okay, so I want to list all the resource group where there are no tags. So if I run this, it will list me all the list of the resource group name where there are no tags applied. Or I can simply run this command. Let's say where tags, I can simply say where tags is not equal to null. Okay, and I can get the resource group name. Resource group name. Dollar tags not equal to. So it's basically I have to use a different condition here. Dot we can do that later on, but this is how I'm what you can say. I'm telling you that it's based on your requirement, what output you are expected to be generated, and based on that you'll have to use your expression. Okay. With this, let me go forward and let's see how to create resources in Azure. Till now, we were just looking after the commands which can get the output for us, like get Azure RMVM, get Azure RM storage account, get Azure RM resource group, stuffs like that. But let's say there is a requirement to create a resource group in Azure. Okay, so to create a resource group, the verb is new, the action. Okay, and the noun is resource group. So I'll use a command called new hyphen Azure RM resource group. Okay, then I'll have to specify the name of my resource group. So I have to specify a name called PowerShell RG. And again, obviously, I'll have to specify the location as well. So location will be, let's say, Central India. So if you run this, the resource group will get automatically created. Okay, so what it says, yeah, resource PowerShell RG was disallowed by policy. All right, so I have applied certain policies on my subscription, which will not allow me to create resource in any other region. Let's create it in East to West 2, and it should allow me. Okay. So new Azure RM resource group, the name of the resource group, and the location where you want to create this resource group. Let me go to Azure portal and see whether that resource group has been created. The command is still running for me. It should not take that much of time. It seems the internet is slow for me today. Okay, an error occurred while sending the request. What's the problem? Let's run this command once again. Okay, so it says that it has. So let me remove the policies so that we can run this command. I don't know what the problem is today with my internet. It's pretty slow. All right, so you can see now the resource group has been created. Let's go to the resource groups and see whether we have the resource group created with PowerShell-RG. And here comes the resource group PowerShell-RG, which we created in East US 2. So this is how you can create your resource group through Azure PowerShell, new-Azure RM resource group. So since we are just left with last 10 minutes, I would like to take any questions if any of your participants have, because it is not at all possible to do Azure PowerShell in one session. So we'll see if we can schedule one more session in next week or in the coming weeks. Okay. So if you have any questions, let's take up the questions.
Ganesh, Shashank here.
Yes, Shashank.
Yeah, we can also. Do we also have an option to select the subscriptions from where we want to select our resources if we have multiple subscriptions?
Okay. So very good question. Now the use case is when you're working in production environment, what happens is your account has been given access to multiple subscriptions. So let's say if my company is managing 20 subscriptions and all those 20 subscriptions have access to my one single account. What happens is multiple subscriptions get associated with your single account. So what you can do is, first of all, if you want to see the list of subscriptions that are associated with your account, you'll have to run this command called getf in Azure RM subscription. So if you run this command, PowerShell will list all the subscription name to which you have access to. Now, let's say you want to manage one specific subscription. So what you can do is you can run this command called select-Azure RM subscription followed by the name of the subscription. Okay. So let's say I want to manage some random subscription. So let's say MSDN platform, or let's say platform 1. It will throw an error for us, obviously, because we don't have that subscription associated with my account. But this is how you'll have to do. Okay. So it is asking a context. Now, this is what is happening in Azure. Since this Azure is very rapidly getting developed, what Microsoft does is sometimes what they do is they decommission some of the commands, they introduce some new commands. So now it is a new command to select the subscription in select-Azure RM context. And then the parameter is the name of the subscription. Okay, so this is how you have to do. You can see it is listing me a lot of subscriptions. If I select anything, it will throw an error definitely. But it's still showing me the Microsoft account. Anyways, but you can select this through this command called select-Azure RM context. And then if you run the command called get-Azure RM VM, it should list all the VMs which are part of that specific subscription. Okay.
Okay.
See, it says your Azure credentials have not been set up because this subscription was one of the subscription when I was working for Microsoft, and now the credentials are no more valid because I don't have that account. Guys, the last thing that I want to tell everyone, that if you're facing any issues framing a command in PowerShell, PowerShell has a very cool feature called help feature, okay, which can give you flexibility to frame the commands on your own just after looking at different examples. So let's say I want to get the help for new-Azure RM resource group. So I don't know how to use new-Azure RM resource group command. So what I can do is I can simply type help, the name of the command, which is new-Azure RM resource group, followed by different parameters. So if you specify a detailed parameter, or if you specify examples, okay. So what Microsoft can do for you is Microsoft can show you different examples that can be used in a new-Azure RM resource group. So if you look here, there are different examples that are popping up in front of us. One of the example is it is saying us that create an empty resource group with positional parameter. So they have used a command called new-azure rm resource group, and the name of the resource group is rg01, and then they have also specified the location as well. So if you see at the location, I'm talking about this command, new-azure rm resource group rg01 South Central US. So they have not used the parameters here, but rather the values directly. So you can see here creates an empty resource group with positional parameter. But if you come here, third example says that create a resource group with tags. So the way it is done is, first you'll have to specify your name and the location, and there's a parameter called -tag wherein you can specify this tags here. Empty is equal to $null, department is equal to marketing. So let's try to implement this command here in our environment, and I'll paste this and I'll execute this. So the help feature of PowerShell, okay, so we had changed the subscription a few minutes ago, so we'll have to change the subscription again back to our current one. Name, my current subscription name is MSDN platform. Okay, I'll run this. Yeah, now it should allow me to create. Yeah. So we are creating a resource group called RG01 in South Central US. There is still policy which is not allowing me to create. Let's create it in East to West 2. West 2. So let's run this. Something is wrong. Enforce tag. There is still a policy which is not allowing me to create. But anyways, you can use those examples from your help, and you can try to frame your command. So let's say I want to take help for get an Azure RM storage account, or I want to create a storage account. So I know the command, which is new-azure RM storage account, but I don't know what are the parameters that I may need to use to create one storage account. So what you can do is you can type help new-azure RM storage account, okay, followed by examples. So let's see what are the different examples that come across in. Okay, so there are 3 examples. One is create a storage account. So how to create a storage account? They have given the command new-azure RM storage account, the name of the resource group, the account name, which is the storage account name, the location, and the SKU name. So what kind of replication model you want, whether you want LRS, ZRS, GRS, RHGRS. So this is the first command which creates a normal storage account. If you want to create a blob storage with blob storage kind, you can use this command. You want to create a storage account with GPv2, you can use this one. So you can go through different examples and try to frame your own commands. Any questions, guys? Hello?
No, sir, not as of now.
No, nothing as of now.
So I'll copy this commands and paste it in the chat window so that you can also grab this commands and copy paste in your notepad. If you have any questions, let's take it up. Or it's already 12:30. We are on time and we can wrap up. Any questions, guys? All right, then let's take this silence as no, and let's wrap the session for today. Thank you very much, guys, for joining today's PowerShell session. Hope you have liked this session, and I hope you'll do practice at your home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ganesh.